Hello and welcome to Around Town TV. My name is Carla Berlin, host of Around Town, Minnesota's lifestyle and business experts. We've been bringing you the best kept secrets, businesses, organizations, and people since 2003. We are the Twin Cities' longest airing television community showcase. I guess that means I'm old. But tonight, I am thrilled to have with me one of my longtime was a client, colleague, and became a dear friend and special guest. She's a money maven, a knowledge junkie, and a born coach. She's a wealth advisor, an entrepreneur, CEO of Prosperwell Financial, a wealth management practice that's been in business since 2003. She's the author of 5 books, a featured media guest, accomplished public speaker, certified divorce and financial analyst, a domestic violence survivor, and a mother of 2 phenomenal children. Please welcome Nicole Middendorf.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for being here in your busy schedule. I'm grateful that you're able to take time out to share what we're about to share, your Live It list, trademark Live It list. For those of you who may have seen Nicole on television or on social media, or you've seen her with me in pictures, one of the things I probably have never posted, but you may or may not know about her, is her main focus is to help people find happiness in life and feel comfortable with their money. And she is truly the best at what she does. But today, we are going to talk about her trademark Live It list and what that is. Nicole always states that she believes that you should live your life to the fullest. And of course, that means different things for different people. But Nicole, for those who don't know what the Live It list is, explain that.
It's a positive spin on the bucket list. And so, what happened for me, August 4th of 2010 was the first time that the 911 phone call went through. And my now ex-husband was arrested for domestic violence. And my daughter was 6 months old, and my son was 2. And from the outside, my life looked perfect. I think I had written 2 books by that time. I had been doing the radio show for a handful of years. I had this big house on the lake. I had multiple cars. We had boat. We had a pool. We had four-wheelers. We had jet skis. We had snowmobiles. We had all of this stuff. And not a single thing of it had I picked out personally myself. Like, I didn't want the house. I didn't want all the cars. Like, I didn't want that boat. And even to my career, I had never planned on being a wealth advisor. I had planned on going to law school, and I wanted to be like Madeleine Albright. I wanted to be like Ruth Bader Ginsburg and change the world and make change. And so I sat down one night and I got the kids to bed, and I'm like, how did I end up here? Because from the outside, social media makes our life look so perfect. And people were like, oh my gosh, it's like they would give anything to trade spots with me, and I would give anything to get out of my situation. And so I was like, what do I do? Like, how do I get me back? How do I get myself back? And so
Mhm.
I was so blessed. I grew up as a figure skater, and one of my coaches had her PhD in psychology. So she always worked with me with the power of your mind. And
Mhm.
she always would, even to like the point that she would say to me, you're not able to say the word can't because it's not in the dictionary. And so I would stop saying that word. And so I'd come over to her, and rather than say, oh, I can't do this, I would just go do it and try it. And so
Mhm.
she always had me have lists. And so when this all happened, I'm like, I'm going to rewrite my bucket list. Well, so I wrote down my list, and I wrote down 12 things. And one of them was a race car, drive a race car. And so I met with my best friend from college, and I said, hey, I'm going to do one thing a month for the next year because the average divorce in Minnesota takes a year. Little did I know I'd be in court for 10 years, but I was like, this is just going to be a distractor for me. Like, I'm just going to do the
Right.
one thing a month on my bucket list. And so I showed him the list, and I was like, I want to drive a race car. Let's go up to northern Minnesota and drive a race car. He's like, Nick, anything you do, you don't just put 100% into it. You put 180. Like,
Yeah.
you need to go to a real speedway. I'm like, okay, I don't know how to drive a stick shift.
Which
So,
we're going to
no,
learn together.
right,
Yep. Yep.
exactly. That's on my limit list.
We're going to
And
do it.
Yes. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. He's like, go to Vegas. Go to Vegas this weekend. I'm like, perfect. Great. Let's go. He's like, no, no, no. He's like, you need to go by yourself. I'm like, okay. So my parents moved into my house to take care of the kids, and I hopped
Mhm.
on a plane to Vegas to drive this race car. And I don't know if you've ever been on a plane where someone has to talk to you the whole time. I
Yes.
had that gentleman. And for some reason, like I look back now and like in life, you look back and you're like, how did I do that? Like I was going through a divorce, this huge house, two kids under the age of two, multiple businesses, and I'm dealing, let alone with the coming to having to acknowledge to myself that I am a victim of domestic violence and deal with all those emotions.
Right.
All of that going on, I still needed to be in the Minnetonka Beach Women's Book Club, reading Steve Jobs's book, which is like humongous. And so
Right.
I'm sitting on this plane trying to get through this book, and this guy is like having to talk to me the whole time, and he's like,
Irritating you.
he's like, you're going to Vegas not to gamble? He's like, how are you going to Vegas and not gambling? I'm like, I'm a financial advisor. I gamble with people's money every single day. I don't need to go to Vegas to gamble.
Right, right.
And so he laughed again, like he's still talking. And finally, I'm like, look, I'm just going to Vegas because I rewrote my bucket list and I'm doing one thing a month for a year and I'm going to go drive a race car. He finally got quiet because he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, I'm so sorry. He's like, you're so young. Is it cancer? And so I realized instantly, I'm
Right,
like, I can't tell people I'm doing something on my bucket list because they think you're dying. And I'm like, I've
right.
already died. Like life can't get any worse than this. I hit my rock bottom. And so I
Mhm,
then was like, I'm just going to start calling it the Live It list. Just
mhm.
so that people were like, what's that? And just that it had a positive spin on it just for me.
Right.
Well, then I learned some statistics. I learned that 1 in 3 Americans is happy. And when I learned that, I'm like, this is horrible. Like,
Yeah.
look at where we live. Like, I voted today. Like, we have an opportunity to
Yeah.
vote.
Right.
We have a voice. We can start a business. Like, look at all the things that are available to us. And one
Mhm.
in three are happy. Like,
I don't
this
even
is
believe it's
awful.
that. I
Yeah.
think it's less than that.
Well, and I mean,
Yeah.
Sarah, my good friend, says if you're out in LA, it's 1 in 20. But I mean,
Wow.
it's awful. And so then I also learned if you spend more money on experiences, you're going to be
Mhm.
happier than if you spend money on things.
Right.
So then I was like, okay, like we're going to incorporate the Live It list into our financial planning. So every client gets a financial plan. Yes, what
Oh.
about retirement? What about your kids' college? Okay, what's on your Live It list? Like what do you want to do in life so that if you don't do this that you're going to regret. And so it became part of our financial planning. Well, then fast forward, I'm like, I'm on to something. And i
Yes, you
started
are.
to i started to get asked to do more public speaking, and so I would speak at a conference. I would share my story of the Live It list, and then I would do a breakout session on money. And so then now fast forward, we have the liveitlist.com. We just came out with these Live It list journals. We take people on Live It list trips. And now it's like this whole, I feel like I just study happiness and how can we really feel fulfilled in life. And I feel so fortunate because I believe in life, sometimes you go through the worst things to be able to experience the best things. And
Mhm,
sometimes out of the worst things come the best things. Do I ever want to
mhm,
go back in time and do I ever want to wish that someone's, a victim of domestic violence? No, but I feel like
mhm,
all of us have this path, and this was my
mhm.
path to come on the other side to be like, okay, here's a
Right.
tool that really, in my opinion, like saved me. It got me my
Um,
confidence back. It helped me really figure out like waking up in the morning, how can I truly be happy? And people are always like, "Oh my God, you get up at 4:15 every morning, you don't drink coffee." They're like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm
or
like,
how can you be
be
happy?
right, exactly. I'm like, because like it's
Mhm,
just when you know your why and when you
mhm.
know your purpose and when you like everything that I do, like it doesn't feel like work. Like I
Yeah.
love inspiring other people. Like today, my post on LinkedIn was I've been on this huge health journey, and like the
Mhm.
comments and the messages, like that doesn't feel like work. Like changing people's lives, it's just that
Mhm.
is what
Mhm.
I'm here for. And so it's so cool how out of the worst moment in my life came this Live It list, and now is a tool for other people to help them figure out what drives them, what moves them, what
Yep.
makes them happy, and really truly live life to the fullest.
I love that, and so does Patty Sagert, a mutual friend of ours. Love the
Yes.
Live It List, Nicole Middendorf. From one overachiever to another,
Yes,
I love
yes.
that, and this probably happens to you when people are like, "You get up at 4?" It's like,
Mhm.
you know how much I'm at morning, but not quite that early. I get so much done in those hours, and
Right,
Patty's the same way, and people will almost, judge that because they don't wanna do it themselves. They're
right,
not as
right.
as achievement oriented, so I always tell her, "You just keep doing you,"
Right. Just, I
because
mean,
it
that's
would
where
make you
like you've
happy.
you've got to find what works for you. Like,
Mhm.
for me, it was 8:45 this morning. I had already voted. I had already had my dermatology screening. I already worked out. I got my daughter to and from the ice arena and to school. And I'm like, it's 8:45 and like look at how much I've done.
Yep.
And but that
Isn't that
works
the
like
best
that work.
feeling?
Yeah, it's the best, but that's what drives me. And
Mhm.
that's the thing is like the Live It list, you don't have to go on the because people always ask, like, what's the best thing that, has happened to you? Or I mean, I have so many amazing
Mhm.
experiences and things that I've done, but the best thing was petting a cheetah in Africa. You don't have to go to Africa and pet a cheetah to
No.
have that amazing thing. One of the things on my list that I haven't accomplished that is like super difficult to do is go to a movie by myself. Like eventually at some
Oh,
point, I've never gone to a movie by myself. And that movie, it ends with us. It's
yes,
that Colleen Hoover movie, and it's
yes.
all about domestic violence. So I had something happen with one of my kids, like something was canceled or whatever. So all of a sudden, it was like 7:15, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can either stay here and work tonight, or I think I can go see that movie. And it was like started at 7:50 or whatever, and it was like 20 minutes away. And so I messaged I have my own foundation, and I messaged one of the recipients of the foundation for domestic violence. I was like, "Hey, do you want to go see this movie in 40 minutes?" And she's like, "Yes." So I missed my
Um,
opportunity still to see a movie by myself
I was gonna say,
because
I
it's so hard to do, but it doesn't have to be this huge big thing. You don't have to
no,
hop on a plane. It can be
nope.
having a pillow fight with your kids. It's all about being present and figuring out what moves you and what drives you and doing those things. And for me,
Mhm.
like petting a cheetah in Africa, it's so I was told when my kids were about 3 or 4 that when they're 13, 14, 14, 15, you want to take them on an African safari. Like those
Okay,
are like the perfect ages and
and
like
why is
the
that?
perfect time. I don't know, but they're totally right. Like it was my kids were
Oh,
13 and 14 and it was like the perfect age. I think it's because like my kids were not so little that they understood that we were in
mhm.
Africa in another
Right.
country. Like we bought a bottle of water when we were on the island seeing Nelson Mandela's prison cell. In
Mhm.
here in the States, that bottle of water would have been $9. It was like
Wow.
47 cents when we were there. And so, like,
Wow.
for the kids to understand the dynamics, the language, like learning the dialects, and
Right.
from the diversity that's in Africa, let alone like all the different things that we did, like how
Right.
knowledgeable the guides were, and just like everything we learned about animals, and like you name it, and the
Mhm.
mountain hiking and everything that we did. But petting a cheetah, so I learned when they were 3 and 4, like you want to take them on an African safari. So as the
Mhm.
kids grew up, they learned about animals and like Africa and
Mhm.
all this stuff. Like that's all I talked about was when you're 13 and 14, we're going to go on this African safari. And I saved money and invested money along the way. So then they were
Of course
13
you
and 14. We went on the trip. We, walked with elephants. We played with baby lion cubs. I
Oh.
petted this cheetah. Oh my gosh, it was like the most amazing experience. And I will continue to talk about that trip, and my kids continue to talk about the trip. And so that's the whole
Interesting.
point of the Live
Right.
It list. It's not just like, oh my gosh, let me take my family to Hawaii. It's
Right.
that you're spending time, you're saving money, you're investing money, you're talking about this, you're planning for it. You then have the experience, and then
Mhm.
you have these memories that you're going to talk about forever. That's what living
Right.
life to the fullest is all about.
Well, and that, to that point, not everyone's at the same level financially. And so, how do you help someone devise that list, but also live within their means? Because, of
Mhm.
course, my Live It list, I can put Maui, or like when you send out your emails, all those trips. I'd love to go on all those trips. But if I did that, you would not be happy with me because I wouldn't be, investing and doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So, how do you manage that?
And that's where it's coming up with, what do you want? Like
Mhm.
I mean, I used all miles to go to Africa. It was
Mhm.
actually a pretty inexpensive trip because stuff there was so inexpensive.
Right, but I
And
don't have
so
miles, so that wouldn't be an option because I don't
that wouldn't be
travel
an
enough.
option. Yep.
Right,
And so
right.
that's where it's like, okay, so let's say you want to take a trip to Hawaii and it's
Yeah,
going to cost $6,000 or whatever. Then
okay.
you've got to look at, okay, how can I accumulate? Can I accumulate $1,000 a month? Or, okay, can I accumulate $100? Most people can find $100 a month.
Mhm.
Most people can find like $200 a month because I
Yep.
don't know if you have Apple TV, Peacock, Hulu, Netflix, Amazon Prime. What else? There's like all these
Yep,
different,
yep.
it's looking at where are you spending money?
Right.
Because if you figure out what's important to you, and if taking your family on a trip to Disney or Hawaii or whatever,
Mhm.
that for most people is going to be more important than having all these streaming services that you're not
Absolutely.
actually using.
Right.
Or more important than going and having a cup of coffee every single day.
Yes.
I'm not saying don't treat yourself to Starbucks, but maybe you
Right.
go once a week or once a month because it's all about priorities. It's all about what's important to you. I
Absolutely.
I had a client that they both made a lot of money, but they were both living relatively beyond their means because they wanted to retire early. And so
Oh,
we went through where she was spending money. And she would go out with her friends, and she'd be the friend that would always pay. She would
yeah.
go out to the coffee shop at least once a day. And then
Mm.
she took dance. And so we went through her budget and we went through everything. And so she gave up she went to the coffee shop once a week. She then went out with her friends and she's like, ladies, I can't pay for all of you because I want to dance. And so it's all about figuring out what is my priority and what
Right.
is valuable to me. And so if you want to
Okay.
take that trip to Maui and it costs you $6,000, you
Mhm.
can find $1,000 a month and then there you go. There's your trip in
Right.
6 months. Or maybe
Right.
you find $100 a month and then you take it in a couple of years. Whatever it is,
Mhm.
in my opinion, I believe you can make anything happen that you really want
Agree.
if you really want it.
Well, a good example of that is, everybody knows I go to Siesta Key every
Hmm.
year. I'm not able to this year, but what I typically do is when I get home in November, it's a $400 or $500 deposit, and the rest of it isn't due till 60 days out. However, what I do is I pay either, well, what I've done it two ways where I pay them X amount every month, so it's paid for 60 days out,
Hmm.
or I put it into a high yield savings account
Hmm.
and make money on it, and then I have even spending money by the time that 60 days comes. And so
Yep.
I've done it a few different ways, and I'm trying to do that, with my I have a vision board, and that vision board I've
Hmm.
transferred into a Live It list too, and of some goals and things as well. And it exactly, Maui is one of mine.
Hmm.
And taking a very expensive cruise that's closer to 7, 8,000 is on my
Hmm.
list. So
Hmm.
those kinds of things, but in order to do that, because as you know, as a caregiver, I took care of my parents, and that's exactly what we did was Live It lists. We have
Hmm.
experiences and memories, and I said to them, I'd rather have that than that money when you're gone. And so
Yes.
we did it that way. And now that doesn't work for everybody. Some
Right.
people would rather have the money, not the
Yeah.
parents. But, so that was, I allowed them to live life to the fullest even
Mhm,
while they were. So
mhm.
this has always been fascinating. So one thing I've noticed is you have a first edition of your Live It
Mhm,
List journal and
mhm.
a second edition. What's the difference?
Yep. So the second edition, this is the new one.
Okay.
Speaking of vision boards, so the first one was a place to kind of come up with your own Live It list, and
Mhm.
then I was like, gosh, like I love having a vision board, and I
Mhm.
love going through the happiness wheel. And so
Yep.
it's these things that I do that I wanted to incorporate into one place. And
Mm.
so one, it's a place to journal, it's a place to write. There's lots of questions in here to get you thinking. But then there's this page that you then can put your vision board, it folds out. You can put your vision board inside of here. And
Oh,
then
wow.
the happiness wheel is inside here as well. And so rather than like me going through and having like my happiness wheel and printing off the sheet and
Mhm.
sitting on a plane and going through it, like everything's in one place. And
Mhm.
so, and I also, the first one was heavier, and so
Ah.
it was very awkward to carry when I went on trips. And
Mhm.
so this is also organized in the back of, okay, here's all the things that I want to do, here's all the things that I want to accomplish, and then breaking it out. Like, here's the 12
Interesting.
things that I want to do before I turn 50, or here's the 12 things I want to do before I turn 60 or 70, or before I sell my house, or
Mhm.
before my kids go to college, or like whatever it is, you can set that in here. And so it's a more organized
Mhm.
version.
I
is
love
the
Oh, wow. And you
Yeah,
take that with you wherever you go?
I do. Yes. So I'm headed to Dubai, and this one will be coming with me, because that way
Ah.
what happens is when you're going and experiencing things,
Mhm.
you're like, oh, I want to do this, or
Mhm.
you meet someone, they're like, have you been to this place or whatever,
Mhm.
and you want to write them down. Well, I wouldn't have the journal with me because the first edition, because it was so heavy, where
Right.
this one I can carry it with me, and it's super easy. And then that way when I'm on the plane, I can flip through and just like randomly, what's a question in here. I'll find
Right.
there's spaces to journal and stuff. But so a random question: what would you regret not doing, being, or having in your life?
Ooh, that's a
And so there's really like super like thought-provoking questions in
yeah.
here that you can do at any point. And so it's meant for, that traveler. And then here's the happiness wheel,
I was
which,
just gonna ask you, and it was hard
yes.
I know maybe showing it there is easier.
Hmm.
I try the graphic with us on here would have been hard for them to see it. So for
Yeah.
those, they can go to the link to see it on your website, but what
Yep.
is the happiness wheel? Because you talk about that a lot.
Yeah. So the
Mhm.
happiness wheel, I do this at least twice a year. And you can take just a sheet of paper, or you can find it on the website, or you can buy a journal.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
basically, you're ranking, where are you in your life? So 0 to 10. And the goal is that this whole circle is shaded in, that you feel
Ah.
a perfect 10 on your health, that you feel a perfect 10 on your finances, personal growth, your
Mhm.
physical environment, your friends and your family. And so there's different categories in here that you can go and rank yourself. And so this is where, for me, I do this twice a year.
Ah.
And really where I have shifted things is last year I did it. And my health is usually the one that kind of like gradually falls down.
Mhm.
And so at the end of the year when I did this, I was like, I'm not happy. Like, not happy where I'm
Mm.
at. And so, because otherwise, if you take all of these categories, if you're like, I want to move, I'm not happy with my job, I'm not happy with my
Mhm.
health, I'm not happy with my finances, it can be
Mhm.
overwhelming. And then
Yes.
you don't do anything.
Right.
And so that's where, if you do this, it helps you prioritize. And so at the end of last year, I'm like, I need to focus on my health. Like, I need to make some changes. And so for me, it was giving up alcohol, it was giving up sugar, it was walking 15,000 steps a day. It was just making some small changes in my life that made a
Mhm.
huge difference from my health standpoint. But also like more reading more books, getting more sleep. And so it
Mhm.
helps you figure out, where am I not happy, or where can I make some adjustments in my life? And usually for most people, It's your career or where you're working.
Yeah.
It's your finances, or it's your
Mhm.
physical environment, like you're not happy where you're living, or it's your health are usually the main ones. But
Well, and I've known you for 21 years, and I've knew you when you were married, and
yeah.
then along, watched you go through, from the outside, of course. And what's really been incredible for me is you focusing on your health, your physical
Hmm.
health,
Hmm.
actually I don't know if it's brought everything to a 10, but as an
Yeah.
outsider looking at you, I've never seen you happier, filled
Yeah.
with joy. You look younger. I mean, you
Yep.
walked in. Thank you for the nice dinner out for my birthday. You walked in. I'm like a supermodel.
Well, thank
Seriously.
you.
Yeah. I mean, you just these
Yeah.
long legs, and we talked about this offline. You were a skater. I was a
Yep.
baton twirler
Had
gymnast.
the
We tend to
skater
have
legs.
Yep, I have
Yep.
the
Yep.
gymnast twirler legs, and, my in our industry, it can be called tree trunk legs, and you walked in and I'm
Yep.
like, "Oh my gosh, you've
Yep.
transformed yourself," and it even softened you. Just
Yes.
every piece of you,
Yes.
and it's just been so fun to watch you evolve. I'm just so proud of you and
Yeah.
what you've done, and that's why I wanted, like, how can we need to share this to everybody. Everybody
Yes.
needs to be able to get a hold of this, and for those who are interested in wanting more or wanting to know more about Nicole on any level, the link to her website is above this video, so please go to that, the Live It list. She's a speaker, as we talked about, coach there, and there's so many things she can do. Join her Live It. We're going to talk about the Move It movement, but before we do that, there's so many things that you can, even meeting with her for as a financial wealth advisor, but just know that all of that information is above here. One of the things I wanted to ask you before we talk about the movement is your Live It list fund. What is
Mhm.
that?
So we have shadow boxes, and it's all about figuring out what do you want to do and then putting
Mhm.
money into those boxes. Now, ideally, you're investing the money.
Right, right.
But the concept behind it is we have the family 401k fund and we have the Live It List fund. And so,
Love it.
if you're by yourself as a single person, you can be like, okay, what do I want to do? Okay, I want to take a
Mhm,
trip to Hawaii. Well, how much
mhm,
money is it going to cost me? When do I
mhm,
want to go? And
mhm.
what do I need to do every single month to get there and be putting that money in that fund? If you're with your kids or if you're part of a family, it's sitting down and, Disney is always like the big example. Kids want to go to Disney. And I don't know, like, when I grew up, I feel like parents said no. Like people
Oh,
would be like, we can't afford to go to Disney.
yes. I was
And
just
and I
gonna say
feel
money.
yeah,
Money.
and I
Yeah.
feel like nowadays parents don't say no, they just like go and they
You
put it on
charge
credit
it.
cards. And it's I find it really disheartening because we're doing a disservice to ourselves, let alone we're doing a disservice to the
Mhm,
next generations. And
mhm.
so your kids are like, I want to go to Disney, I want to go to Disney, I want to go to Disney. Okay, let's sit down as a family. This is going to be a Live It List experience that we want to do. How can we make it happen? Because we want to teach the next generation, like, let's not just leave the lights on. Like,
Right.
let's be conscious about things. Let's be aware of how much things cost. Because especially like I watch my children, I didn't grow up with DoorDash. Like, to me, I
Right.
find it just fascinating that my kids think nothing of paying someone to deliver food to the house. Like, I
Right.
just
Right.
that like I cringe. I'm like,
Oh,
do you realize you just paid $10 or $15 for them to drive? Like, you really actually physically could have hopped on your bike. I know it would have taken you 2 hours.
right.
Like,
Right.
like we could have
That's
driven
true.
there,
Right.
even though I had said
Right.
no. But it's just we live in so much of a different environment of spending money and the ease of spending money and making sure that we're teaching our next generations about financial awareness. And so that's where the Live It List Fund can be for yourself, or ideally it can be for your family or even like extended family. You're sitting
Love
around
it.
at the holidays, and what happens? Kids are opening up these gifts. Grandma and grandpa feel this pressure to buy all this stuff. We buy all this stuff, and then what happens? The
Right.
kids forget about those gifts. So
Right.
maybe you could sit around as a family and say, you know what? How about we skip gifts? let's all
Mhm.
take a trip to Hawaii or Disney or
Mhm.
wherever next year. So
Yep.
let's all make a commitment and we're all going to put $100 away a month or whatever it is and have those memories and have those experiences.
And
So,
that's I was raised like that. My mom should have been a wealth advisor, I swear. She actually, as we've talked about, invested her own money through, what was it called? Ameritrade or, not Ameritrade, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, TD Ameritrade. Now it's not even that. Now it's with Charles Schwab, but, I don't recommend that, by the way. Even though she could have been a wealth advisor, but she only did her own money, and, I don't do that. So, and I don't recommend that. But the whole point of that is just, putting the money away or planning that
mhm.
goal, creating the memories versus things and stuff. Now, if somebody is wanting to be a part of, I get your emails of the Live It list and things, or as it says on your website, to join the movement. How do they
Yep.
do that?
We've got a Facebook community, and so I go live
Oh,
every Sunday, and then I go live every Thursday. And Sunday's like, hey, it's Sunday. What did you do last week to be intentional about life? And if
mhm,
you're like, oh my gosh, it's Sunday, I didn't really do much, what can you set yourself up, or what can you
mhm.
schedule, or what can you plan so that you're living life to the fullest for the week? And then Thursday is more inspirational. So it could be something that happened, something that someone said. It could, we've been using the new journal a lot with the different questions in there. And so it's a place where people can post like, hey, I went and did this. And so
Right.
when you're sharing experiences, you're sharing ideas. I just feel like in our world today, there's so much negativity. And
Yeah.
so it's a place that can be positive. It's a place that it's all about how can we really live life to the fullest. So there's inspirational quotes, there's, various things that happen. For me, it's all about providing a platform for people to be positive.
Oh, you know what? I love that. And you're right. There's so much negativity. There's so much meanness. There's so much
Mhm.
cruelty. As we've talked about offline before, it's frightening. So it's fun to have something that can help somebody, figure out their joy and their happiness, as well as experiences through the Live It list. If someone does need help, with their Live It list, what should they do?
Get a journal. And
Mhm.
so you can go to the liveitlist.com, get a journal, go through that. You can always
Mhm.
reach out to me individually. We do
Okay.
local events and then we do trips. And then be part of the community because that's where it's like you're around people that think like you want to think or think
Right.
like you do. Because I really truly believe it's all who you surround yourself with. And over the years, my circle has gotten smaller and smaller just because there's
Right.
so many people that have so much toxicity to them. I don't want to
Mhm.
be around it. Like I don't have the
Mhm.
energy for it. On this health journey, like I really realized that. Like who am I spending time with? What am I having my eyes see? And part of it was learning a lot about trauma and somatic exercises and like calming down your nervous system, as well as I'd listened to a podcast that said, okay, so you wake up in the morning and before you've even brushed your teeth, look at how much negativity has affected you. So
Mhm.
your alarm is going off. Is it beeping?
Right.
You wake up. You then are looking at your phone instantly. Maybe you see some not nice text messages, some not nice emails. Then you go to social media, negative, negative, negative. And so that's where it's all about surrounding yourself with positive people and like minded people.
Oh, I agree, and again, you are one of those people in my life. My circle got very small in the last year since my parents died, and, I'm just thrilled with those who are there because same type of thing, and you are one of them. I mean, you were there for me. I said this when, Brian Layton was on my show. I talked about a few of the people who offered me a place when I was displaced or homeless, and Nicole was one of the first people who called me, and I'm so grateful to you. Thank you.
You're so
There's
welcome.
yeah, I
That's what
just
life is all about. I mean, that's what life is all about. Like, we don't
Mhm.
need negativity. We don't
No.
need to have like everyone's going through something and you
Right.
never know what someone's going through. And so I feel like we had this movement before of like random acts of kindness and there's this
Mhm.
focus of gratitude and really like the live it list can be that,
Right.
what drives you? What
Right.
what moves you? Where are you in life and where do you want to go? And surrounding yourself with people that want those same things.
And it doesn't mean life is going to be, rainbows and flowers every day. We
No.
know that because real life is not that. It's just having the tools to pull yourself out when you're
Right.
having those days. A good
Right.
example for me is the other night I was at one of my favorite churches, Mount Olivet Lutheran Church in Victoria, Minnetrista area, for a wedding of a former neighbor's daughter who was like a granddaughter or like a niece to me. And I had had a premonition that morning that I was going to get a flat tire, and it was a semi-formal
Oh.
wedding. So I'm in nylons, high heels, and this like Jackie O light blue dress, and um, you know, and it's cold, but it wasn't too cold that you needed a jacket, but too cold to be standing in high heels changing a flat tire. And I get this flat tire. And
Oh.
so I'm trying to text everybody because everything was boom, boom, boom. And it was the reception was at the Wilds Golf Course, so a half hour away. So I'm stuck in Chaska, but in an area that I didn't know. And with Google and trying to get help, well, I have roadside assistance through our wonderful friend Laura, who's my insurance agent. But roadside assistance was going to be 80 minutes.
Mm.
And then by the time they change it and then I get there, I'm like, well, the dinner would be over. So then I tried to call the police station and they don't do that, but they hooked me up with somebody. That person was on their way right away, but couldn't find me. So finally
Oh.
the neighbor comes out and he's like, do you need help? And I'm like, I would love that. He and his dad changed it and got me on my way. But it's interesting that people drove by me, including a police
Mhm.
officer who probably thought I had help and didn't realize it, but people even shut their garage doors. They didn't wanna help,
Right. Right.
and they didn't
Right.
realize. Now when I got to the wedding, I felt a couple people were like I had texted one old neighbor, she goes, "Oh, well, the dinner's not even till, 7 o'clock, so you'll be golden," 'cause the I think this happened, like, at 10 to 5, 5:15. So I literally pulled in at, like, 7:15 when the salads were just being placed, and, she's like, "I can't even believe you came. I would have been, like, so upset I would have gone home." And I said, "If I
Oh.
went home for every bad thing that happened to me every single day, I'd be home all the time."
Yes, that's the
So that's
truth.
a long way of sharing. You just have to pull yourself up. In fact, I wanted to cry, and I said, I started to get emotional. I'm like, "Wait, my
Right.
husband might be at that wedding. I can't have, like,
Yeah, you never know. You
right?
never know.
Just pulling yourself out of that what could be a very dark place. And of course, who's the first person did I miss when that happened? My dad, because
Yep.
he would have been the
Yep.
first one there.
Yep. Yep.
Yep. So it's just trying to not let yourselves go down that which is easy to do, that hole, or if you do, then using the tools of the Live It list to bring yourself out and find that
Yep.
joy and happiness.
And that's where it was the tool for me because I went swimming with sharks. I rappelled down the Ecolab building. There were so many things that like I pushed, jumped out of a plane. So many things that really like pushed myself where
Mhm.
like and I'm doing a few things in Dubai where I'm like, okay, this is very nerve-wracking. Like, oh my. But doing those, when you do those things, for me particularly, when I was in the courtroom with my I got the thumbs up. When I was in the
Oh.
courtroom with with my ex-husband,
Oh.
that that was so much easier because I'm
Uh-huh.
like, if I can swim with sharks, if I can rappel down the building, if I can do all this stuff, like I can handle this. And
Mhm.
the stressful things of life, the flat tires, the kids that are sick, the air conditioner that breaks.
Right.
I'm not saying life is going to be all perfect, rainbows and roses, but
Right.
when these bad stressful things happen, you're able to be more resilient and handle them easier.
Absolutely. What else haven't we covered that's pertinent to the Live It list?
I would say for it's the biggest thing that it can be a dramatic life changer. Like for me,
Mm.
I did it. I wrote the list just to be a distractor, really. And I didn't realize how much it would boost my confidence. I didn't
Wow.
realize how much it would change my life from a standpoint of, what do I believe in life and how
Mhm.
can I change my behavior? Because so many people,
Mhm.
so many times want to change their behavior. They're like, I want to lose 20 pounds or I want to have $1 million or whatever it is.
Yep.
Well, you really actually can't change your behavior unless you change your beliefs.
Mhm.
And the Live It list helped me really change my beliefs about things because
Wow.
it boosts your confidence. It gives you so many other tools that like I feel like I learn, even though I feel like things went really slowly, like it took me a long time to get out of this. It was
Yeah,
one of the tools that sped it up for me to
good.
process through the trauma, to process through the yucky stuff. And so
Right.
it can be hopefully a vehicle for you that can help, make things happier, easier, faster, that you can live the life that you truly want.
We should probably have, you know how you have your foundation luncheons and stuff? We should probably have a Live It List, like, seminar or weekend, like, or even just
Yeah, little
another weekend, like,
retreat.
yeah, a
Yeah,
little
a
retreat,
retreat.
or even just a
Yeah.
day where people can sneak away for a few hours, and,
Hmm.
if it can be done just to get them on, where they come and they attend and they listen to you and buy your book, and
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, we're doing a vision board event, so in January, and so that's where like you can come, you can make your own vision board. You'll do that in the journal and chit chat
fantastic.
for an hour.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's perfect.
yeah,
See, of course you're
yeah.
ahead of me on that. Yeah, just been whew. What else haven't we covered?
um, there's so much. Like I
I
literally,
know.
I mean, that's the thing. Like there's a live it list. There's my own personal story. There's the money side of things. There's how do you deal with relationships in
Right,
money? How do you really find yourself? I mean,
right.
those are all the things that like encompass. I mean, that's the thing. Like I never thought I would be a wealth advisor, and now I feel like I'm becoming more of a motivational speaker. And really, I mean, I joke many days that I'm a therapist, not really a wealth advisor. But the amount of times that
Mm,
people have told me like I've saved their marriage, like that's just so it's
mm.
such a blessing for me, and like
Right,
so rewarding to really help people figure out like where are you in life and
right,
who are you and what do
right,
you want, and if you're in a relationship or even dating, how do
right.
you communicate and how do you make that happen?
Well, and to be that supportive friend that doesn't go, "Yeah, he's this or she's that," or, "Yeah, get divorced," because you're
Right.
single like us, to be that real true friend that people need, along with whether you're, the colleague, the friend, all of it, and finding that fine line, but just being that true authentic person to support them and really caring. That's what
Hmm.
it's li life is about, is truly just giving a darn about others.
Right. I feel like so many people are just either on the surface level
Mm,
or not willing to be authentic or not willing to be vulnerable.
yep.
And for me, I learned that it was at the Hilton. I don't remember when it was. It had to have been like 2012, and I was asked to be on this panel of women business owners. So I was on stage and I don't remember what question was asked, but I answered it, and I was the first time ever that I kind of alluded that I was in this really unhealthy relationship. I didn't come and say like I'm a survivor of domestic violence. I didn't say that I was a victim. I didn't say any of that. And I walked off the stage and walked because I was going to leave, and all these women were coming up to me, and
Ah,
some of them were crying, some of them were like, "Thank you so much for sharing your story." Some of them had
mhm.
questions like, "You got out. How did you what did you do with this?" Other women were like, "I got out," and I didn't realize how I had hit so many people on a different level because
Mhm.
I was so vulnerable,
Yeah.
even though I didn't like open it up and split like I did today of like August 10th, like everything of or August 4th of 2010, like everything changed.
Right.
But I learned at that moment, like, I need to share my story
Yes.
because one, the number of people that are, one in four women are in a domestic violent relationship. 1 in 9 men are in a domestic violent relationship. And I find it just fascinating to me. I feel like that's why I've been single for so long, is
Mhm.
because I was like, I am not going to settle. Like,
Right.
if I'm going to be in a relationship, it needs to be healthy. It
Right.
needs to be amazing. There needs to
Right.
be communication on money. And it's
Right.
fascinating because my team, we all meet every morning and we say what we're grateful for, and we say the three
Oh.
things that we're working on. And so the other morning, it came up about relationships and money because we have a couple that's kind of struggling a little bit in their relationship with money. And so one of our team members was like, "So how is that like? how is that driven? Like, how
Mhm.
do, why is that such an issue? Like, why are so many people getting divorced and why do so many people fight about money? And
Mhm.
so we normally, like, this is just a fast meeting. Like, what are you grateful for? And what are the three things that you're working on so that we can get to work? But
Right.
we stayed for some time having a discussion of like, why so many divorces. One, it's sex and
Right.
it's money.
Oh, the
And
2 things that people fight over and get divorced are sex and money.
right. And
Yep.
so why is that such an issue and how can
Mhm.
we fix that? Because I was on I did a presentation today, a talk for a company out in the East Coast, and it was for their employees. They have a group that is all about, it's like this family group that they call it, but it's supposed to for all these employees. And it was about how do you, the title was, how do you not go to bed mad about money?
Right.
And so it was all about like your own relationship with money, but let
Mhm.
alone if you're in a relationship with someone else, having a money date, having those conversations with your kids, and how do you not go to bed mad about money?
Mhm.
But we had this conversation with our team about people don't want to talk about it. And
Yeah.
it's so important to have that healthy relationship. And I find it just fascinating. I don't know. Maybe it's because I was in such an unhealthy relationship for so
Yeah.
long that I'm extra sensitive to it. But I'll just be observant at a
Yeah.
restaurant and, you're out to dinner and like each couple's just on their phone, or
Right.
like the bill comes and they don't, like, no one wants to take it. Like it
Right.
sits on
Right.
the end of the table for a long
Yeah.
time. And I just find it so fascinating how so many people are so apprehensive to take that first step and talk about money,
Yeah.
and because it's okay. Like it's
Oh,
just
it
another piece
totally
to
is
have a
okay.
conversation about. Yeah.
Well, and my parents, as you know, uh, were the opposite. It seems like they grew up both so poor, and then they built their own money together, and so they had nothing when they got married, but they didn't fight about it. They talked about it. I mean,
Hmm.
things were not
Hmm.
always easy. I mean, they had some rough times with medical and health issues and things like that, but because they had such a wonderful relationship and so communicative about everything. That is one of the reasons I think I'm single versus having a bad relationship. It
Hmm.
isn't even about, yes, I haven't always had great relationships. I've made some bad choices, but watching them, it's like that sometimes is almost unrealistic
Right.
just to have
It's very,
that.
very rare. Very,
Very
very
rare.
rare.
Yep.
Yeah.
They literally died adoring each other and still holding hands and making out, and they never got over the honeymoon stage. It was just awesome.
Yep.
And, but we're very good at able to and respectful of one another.
Hmm.
And that
Yes.
is such a hard thing to see. That's such an interesting perspective, Nicole. Thanks for sharing that. And what a great thing you're doing with your team too, to start out a day saying what you're grateful for. I mean, I do that by myself. Oh, and with Mimi, she's on my lap. In fact, she fell asleep, and the reason you saw me jump is she was having a dream and she jumped, and I was
Oh.
yeah.
Oh.
She's been good
Yes,
though.
if you can come from a place of gratitude, it just totally shifts things. And so every morning
Mhm.
we say, what are we grateful for? And what are the three things that we're working on? But at night, one of the things you can do is, what was the one thing that I was the most grateful for?
Oh,
Because if
okay.
you answer that question, it's fascinating because you'll be like, okay, I'm grateful that, I got to spend time with my daughter this morning and get her to skating and get her to school.
Mhm.
Today was her last day of school. She's switching schools on Monday. Oh,
Mm.
I'm grateful I could vote, that I have the
Yes.
ability to do that in the
Yeah.
States here. I'm grateful that I saw my dermatologist and I've got like everything's all great. I'm great that I
Oh,
could grateful that I can meet with my team, grateful that I got to have a speaking engagement, grateful that I could see my nutritionist this afternoon, grateful that I got outside to go for a walk,
wow.
grateful that my daughter had her, like you start thinking about all the things that you're grateful for and like what's the thing that I'm the most grateful for? You
Mhm.
end up like it totally shifts your mind because maybe you were stressed out about an email that you got or something happened at the end of the day. And then if you're like,
Mhm.
what was the one thing I was the most grateful for? You start listing off all these things. You're like, wow, today was a pretty amazing day. And it just totally shifts your mindset.
Right.
Gratefulness is just, it's so huge.
It is, it
It's
is.
life changing.
And of course, some days easier than others.
Yes. Oh,
Right.
absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, some days you might be like, I'm just grateful I woke up this morning because maybe you've got
Mhm,
the stomach flu or what, whatever it
mhm.
is. It doesn't have to be this, it doesn't have to be an amazing thing every single day. But if
Right.
you think about what was the one thing I was the most grateful for, you're going to have a bunch of things you're like, wow, like my life is pretty good.
Yes, absolutely. What else?
Um, Money for kids. I mean,
Mhm.
like there's so, or retirement, like
Yes,
people are so stressed about money. I just
right
feel
now
like,
specifically.
I mean, you said the word respect, and I feel like that's like people are just so tense about
Mhm.
life and their opinions. And I find it, people are so quick to jump to conclusions and
Mhm.
not necessarily stopping and asking questions.
Right,
We had a client recently leave us, and I was like, well, that was really weird. I wonder why they left. And
right,
so we always send an email, why did you leave? Like,
right.
usually we know. It's usually, just we really focus on giving our clients the wow experience, and
Right,
so very rarely do we lose clients, and usually if we do, we like they're getting married and like they're marrying someone that the financial advisor, what,
right,
they're moving, just
right, or
various
they pass
reasons.
away and then the kids have to take yeah,
Correct. Yeah.
yeah.
And so, but this was kind of out of the blue, and so I email her, I'm like, why did you leave, like what happened? She's like, well, you're not a fiduciary. I want to invest with someone that's a fiduciary. And so I
What's
replied
that?
back and I was like, well, I do wish you all the best. If you ever change your mind, please let me know. But yes, I am a fiduciary. Like, not in so many words, I was like, you never asked. And
Right,
so it's interesting because then we went and we're like, we need to change our website. So we're in the process of changing our website to add in the word fiduciary a number of times. But I find it just so fascinating is like right now, people are like, you need to make sure you're having a fiduciary invest your money. All that means is you're having someone that works in your best interest.
which you do, and you are.
Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's a I know,
right.
is it
And
like a title that you have to go to school for? Or yeah, I never
right. So I find it so fascinating how we just as a society like jump
Mhm,
on to something and glom on to a word,
mhm.
and then we make assumptions without asking questions, and or we have this opinion and we need to impress that opinion upon someone else.
Right,
And so I just find it very interesting, disheartening at one
right,
standpoint, but
right.
also very interesting when it comes to your money,
Yep.
because you really need to, it used to be you could buy stocks and you could buy bonds.
Right, right.
Nowadays, oh my gosh, the number of things that are out there to invest in is astronomical, let
Mhm.
alone all the different types of accounts, let
Right.
alone all the different information, let alone the different misinformation out there.
Yes,
And
yes.
so it's really important to make sure that you're a good steward of your own money and be aware of everything that's available to you, but also to ask lots of questions and never, like when I did my radio show, it was all, people would call in and ask
Mhm.
financial questions. And it could be anything
Right,
from estate planning to budgeting to retirement accounts to kids'
right.
accounts to, you name it.
Mhm.
And I would just stress so much, like there's never, ever, ever a dumb question when it comes to your
Right.
money. And
Yes.
so
It's
don't
your
feel
money.
right. Don't
Yeah.
feel intimidated to ask those
Mm.
questions, because the only way that you're going to learn. And it's
Yes.
important to not make assumptions
Right.
and ask those questions, because it could be anything. Like, don't assume what your credit card is charging you in interest, because right now, I mean, it's
Mhm.
scary the amount of credit cards that I've
Oh,
seen that clients are sending us statements, 18%, 21%,
oh,
27%.
I'm seeing
Like,
like 29 to 34%.
right, right,
It's
right.
crazy.
You cannot get ahead if
No.
you have credit card debt or any personal loan
Mhm.
or anything at that rate. And so you cannot just assume like everything's, don't assume bills are right. Like,
Right.
don't assume that you're paying a reasonable interest rate. Like, you don't want to
Right.
make assumptions when it comes to your money, because you can miss something. And the
Right.
other big thing that I've seen a lot of is financial anxiety and
Mhm.
avoidance. like
Mhm.
avoiding money because it's scary for
Right.
you or it's intimidating or it's overwhelming. And that's what we really focus on is like, when I bought my building and remodeled it, the whole focus was how can I make someone feel like they're coming to a spa-like experience, but
Right.
that it's very intellectual, but that it's not overwhelming, it's not intimidating because those
Mhm.
feelings of intimidation and being controlled or feeling overwhelmed, I
Yeah.
lived with a majority of my life.
Yeah.
And so I don't ever want someone to feel that way about their money. And it's very common that
Oh.
people do.
Well, absolutely, and that's interesting, and, a lot of it, like, the example you just gave is driven from media and social media, and sadly, I am from the era that if I had given my own narrative being working for a network or when I was in journalism school, I would have not received a good grade. There was times
Mhm,
when our professor would say, "Rewrite that."
mhm, mhm,
Now, I mean, that's like nothing with what's
mhm,
going on, but it's why I do this show. It's why when I took it off broadcast and I've kept it because A, we can go as long as we want to get your
mm.
message out there, and it's needed to be able to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. I'm not going to edit this. Everything you said will stay. I won't try to change the narrative. I don't put filters. I try to just be as authentic as we can be and get the facts to the people who need them. And we've had a following this whole time. We've been on 54 minutes, and people have stayed on across all mediums and are watching and are obviously interested. But it like we said, most of the issues right now that are affecting people or what causes divorce, sex, and money. But money in the economy is such a
Mhm,
big deal right
mhm.
now.
Well, and everyone's scared. The election
Mhm.
is happening and people are scared and nervous and interest
And
rates and you name it.
misinformed and,
Mhm.
and
Yep,
informed, misinformed. They're afraid for a variety of reasons. And
yep.
so I appreciate you taking time out of
Yes.
your you do more in a day than most people do in 2 weeks. So
I
um,
know, but it's all because I know my why and I'm passionate about it and I love helping people. So thank you for having me on.
oh, you are so welcome. I'd love to have you back to talk on some of your other topics and your books and just some of the things that you speak on because I think it's of interest to those who are watching right now, and I think they could use it if you ever have time. So
Yes, absolutely.
great. Anything else before we close the show?
No, thank you so much.
Oh, well, thank you again. I know you're probably are my busiest friend. And, and I'm grateful for your time. For those who are tuning in, we had Nicole Middendorf, who's been our special guest tonight. As you can see in the link, not only a money maven, she's a speaker. You probably recognize her from some of the networks here in town. Domestic violence survivor, and of course, she's proud of being a mother of two phenomenal children, and has just really been sharing her trademark Live It list, her journey, her own story. If you miss part of it, this will be embedded and you can go back and watch it. But if you need or have any questions regarding anything we've spoken about, click on that link to contact her, and she will get back to you right away. And thank you all for tuning in. We've been going live on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time. We've caught added a few shows on Tuesdays, Sundays, and some other days. We've had a big interest in those wanting to be featured on Around Town TV. And we used to run almost 4 times a day, 20 times a week. And now we just are there all the time and can be there for when it works for you. So I thank you all for supporting Around Town TV for almost 22 years. And we'll start our 23rd year on air. We've been in business around the same
Mhm.
time. And it's just been
Yep.
fun to be your girlfriend alongside you in business as well. So thank you all to the viewers for watching, and we'll see you next Wednesday evening, 7 p.m. Central Daylight Time, right here on Around Town TV. Thank you again, Nicole.
Thank you.
Bye bye, everyone.